today we are going to study about another important component of a plant, which is the stem. Right, so if you look into this figure, we have the roots. So we have already discussed about roots in detail. Today we are going to study about this particular component, which is the stem. So basically we'll be looking into what stems are, what are the functions of stem, and how do we classify plants on the basis of stems. So there can be different types of plants based on the type of stem that they have. Okay. So let us move to the definition of a stem. So stem is the part of a plant that grows above the ground. So this is applicable to most of these stems, right? So it is the part of a plant that grows above the ground. There are certain exceptions. We'll see in the later slides that there are stems that also grow below the ground, right? But usually most of the cases we'll see stem. It is a part of the plant that grows above the ground, right? It connects the roots with leaves, flowers, and fruits. So you know that roots are underground, right? So it needs something that will connect it to other parts of a plant. Why? Because it has to transport the minerals and water that it has absorbed from the soil to other parts. So it needs something that would transport that, right? So it needs a connection or a channel. So stem serves as that channel. Okay. Let us see some of the functions of stem. So the first function of a stem is it carries water and minerals from the roots to the leaves. Now see, roots absorb water and minerals from the soil, right? Leaves needs water and minerals so that it can prepare food using photosynthesis, right? So how can this water be transported to these leaves, right? So it is by the stem. So it is the stem that carries the water that is absorbed by the roots from the soil. Okay, so it will transport this water to different components, not even not only the leaves, but also say the flower and the fruit. Okay, because everything needs water. The second important function is it carries food made by leaves to other part of the plant. Now say leaves use the water it received to prepare the food, right? Now once the food is prepared, it is not that only leaves needs the food. Roots also need food because it also has to grow. Right, so how will this food reach from here to here? It is via the stem. So this is another function of stem. So it carries food made by leaves. So the leaves prepare the food and it is then carried to different parts of the plant via the stem. Okay. At the same time, it also provides support, right, to all the components of a plant. Say without the stem, the leaves won't be able to sustain, right? So it provides support to the uh, leaves, it provides support to the flowers, it provides support to the fruit as well. Okay. So again, just to reiterate what we have discussed, so stems are also known as transport system of plant. Why? So you may get a question that why is stem the transport system of a plant? It has two reasons. The first is it carries water and minerals from the root to different parts of a plant, okay, in the upward direction. And then it carries food from the leaf to other parts of the plant in the downward direction. Right, so that is why it is known as the transport system, because first it transports water and minerals from the roots and then it transports food from the leaves to other parts of the plant. Okay. Then we'll see what are the different types of plants, right? So the types of plants may change based on the types of stem that they have. So basically we are trying to look into what are the different types of stems that we have. Okay, mainly we have these classification: herbs, shrubs, trees, climbers, and creepers. We'll see into detail what each of these means, what characteristics do they have. Okay, let us move into herbs. Right, so herbs are small plants with soft and green stems. So these are small plants, very small. Right, and their stems, right, their stems are soft and green. Right, so their stems are also flexible and can bend easily. So it is difficult to break them because they are flexible. So if something is flexible, it is very difficult to break it, right? If something is not flexible, then it is slightly easier to break it. right? Because if it is flexible, it will simply bend and not break, right? So what are the characteristics? They are small, their stems are soft, and they are green, right? So herbs are small plants, their stems are soft and green, and at the same time they are flexible and can bend easily. What are some examples? Tulsi, mint, and turmeric. So these are certain examples of herbs. So you'll see all of them have the same characteristics. So if you look at turmeric, small plant, soft and green stem, and it is very flexible. So it is not difficult, it is pretty difficult to break it. Right? Mint, again the same characteristics, small plant. So mint is also known as pudina. Right? So it is small, soft and green stem, is flexible and can bend easily. Okay, so this is herbs. Now, so just remember the characteristics because it is going to change based on each and every plant that we are going to discuss. Then we have shrubs. So herbs were small size plants. These are medium sized plants, right? And for herbs, the stems were soft. Here the stems are strong, pretty strong and woody, right? So they were not woody, so that is why it was very difficult. So they could bend easily. Here they cannot bend easily because they are woody, right? They are not flexible. So this is one characteristic. So the plants are medium sized, not small, medium sized, and their stems are strong and woody. Okay. What is another characteristics of shrubs? The branches grow close to the ground. What is a branch? So if you look at a stem looks like this, then it has branches. So basically from a stem there can be, so just like a single root can result into multiple, a single primary root results into multiple secondary and tertiary roots. Similarly, branches or stems results into a lot of secondary and tertiary stems which are known as branches. So this is a stem and then it has branches like this. So this is a stem, it has branches like this. So the branch of their stem, they grow very close to the ground, right? So they are, if you look at this figure, they are very close to the ground. Okay, we'll see later some examples wherein they are not close, they are very far away from the ground. Okay, so it gives them a bushy appearance, so that is why you'll see these kind of plants in gardens, right? So they look very good wherein the branches are very close to the ground, so all the flowers, they are flowers or the plants are clustered, right, which looks very good in gardens. So that is why they are usually used in gardens, right? What are some examples? Tea, again if you look at this property, medium sized plant, strong and woody stem, and branches are growing close to the ground. Jasmine, the same property, rose, the same property, and cherry plant, the same property. Okay. Then we move on to trees. Now see, herbs were the smallest with flexible branches that are soft. Then we had shrubs which were medium sized with strong and woody stem, and the branches were close to the ground. Trees are very large, right? They are very tall and they have very thick stem, right? So which are strong as well. So such kind of stems that are very thick and strong, they are known as trunk, right? So we can call this as branch, right, or stem. We can call this as stem, but when the plant is very big, then it is known as the same term stem is called a trunk. Okay, so their branches grow very high above the ground. So shrubs, we saw that the branches are very close. Here in trees, the branches are very far away, right? So if you look at this distance, it is very far away from the ground. Okay, so the branches are growing very far away from the ground. They have a single main stem called the trunk. So this is the main stem. This is single, right? And then very far away from the ground, it splits into branches. If you look into shrubs, it has multiple small stems, right? Some examples: apple, right? Oak, mango, coconut. All of them are examples of trees because they are very tall, their trunk is very strong and woody, right? Their branches are growing high above the ground, right? All of them have a single trunk, okay? Then we move on to vines, right? So all these three cases, the plants are growing straight on their own. What are vines? Vines are weak stems. So if the stems are weak, stems of plants can be weak as well. So they need support, right? So say of some object or other plants to grow. So they are known as vines. So vines are the plants wherein the stems are very weak. So that is why they need support. So there are two types of vines mainly, climbers and creepers. Right? So what climbers do, they climb, and what creepers do, they creep. Right? So climbing means, so if you take or if you have a support, it will just climb over that support, like this plant, grapevine, right? And the money plant. So if you give it any support, it will use that support to climb upwards because its own stem is weak to hold its weight, right? That is why it has to take support from any additional or external object. So they have weak stems, need support to grow upward. So because the name climbers, so they climb. Okay. Creepers on the other hand, they also have weak stems. So both climbers and creepers have weak stems, but they grow along the ground. Okay, they do not climb. So they creep. Creep means to walk along the ground, right? So it just follows the ground, right? Because it cannot stand upright because of its weak stem. Okay, what are some examples? Watermelon and pumpkin. So these are two examples of um, creepers. Okay. Now just like plants used to store their food in roots, we discussed few cases. So they can also store their food in form of stems. Right. So some plants store extra food in their stems. The stored food helps the plant survive and grow when needed. Again, when there is a time of crisis, then plants can use the stored food. Right. You can see how these food are stored in the stem underground. Now you may have a question that shoot system. So stems are a part of shoot system and this is underground. Right. So how this is a stem? So for example, if you consider this is a potato. Right. If this was a root, how will this look like? It would have root hairs like this. Right, so it would be a tap root. If this was a root, it would be a tap root. And it would have root hairs and primary and secondary roots. However, instead of having that root hairs, it has buds. Right, buds are the places from where new stems grow. So stems have buds, roots have hairs. Right, so this is how we know that this is a stem and not a root. Right, what type of stem it is underground. Now coming to that definition of root and shoot system that we discussed previously. So root system means the parts that grow under the ground. Shoot system means that the parts that grow above the ground. But there are certain exceptions. So there can be some shoot system that grows under the ground as well. For example, potato, ginger, onion. So all these are growing inside the ground, right, or under the ground. So but they are not roots, they are stems. And how do we know they are stems? They have buds. They do not have root hairs. Right, if you look at this onion, you will not find any root hairs. You will find it below. Right, so this is not a part of that stem. This is the root. This is not the root. Okay, similarly, if you have ginger, it also has buds and not root hairs. Potato also has buds that we already discussed. Okay, so these are, so you may get questions like potato. Is it a stem or a root? So we'll say it is a stem. How do you know? Because it has buds and not root hairs. Okay, so these three are examples of food that are stored in the stem. Potato, ginger, onion. Okay, these food storing plant parts have buds that can grow into new plants. So this can further grow into new plants. This is one clue that they are stems and not roots because they have buds. Right? If they did not have this bud, then we could have thought about it as a root. However, since they give buds, so buds are property of stems. Right? So whenever there is a new branch coming out of a stem, first it will come out as a bud like this. Okay, so if you see this bud, it means it is a stem. If you don't see this bud, it means it is a root, given that they both of them are underground. Okay, so that is all that we had to discuss about stem. We'll have some questions just to check if we are able to understand whatever we discussed. So the first question, what is this plant? Why is this plant called a climber? Why is this a climber? It has a thick trunk? No, trees have a thick trunk, right? It needs support to grow upward? Yeah, it does need support to grow upward. That is why it is a climber. Creeper needs support to creep, right? So it actually does not need support, but it is taking support from the ground and it creeps over the ground, right? It stores food in roots. It does not store food in root. It has a soft stem. So soft stem is a property of herbs, right? So they have weak stems and not soft stems. Which one stores food in its root? Potato, it is a stem. Ginger, it is a stem. Onion, it is a stem. Sweet potato is a root because you'll see root hairs in sweet potato. Right? It does not have buds like potato. So this is a very important distinction. Potato is a stem, however, sweet potato is a root. Okay, so the answer will be sweet potato. A plant has a thick woody trunk and then branches growing high above the ground. Right? Again, try solving this on your own first, then you can go through the solution. So you can pause this video to try and solve it on your own. So what type of plant it is? Is it a herb? No, herbs are very small, right? And their branches are soft, right? Or stems are soft. Shrubs are mid-sized and their branches grow very close to the ground. Tree has this property, what they are discussing. So thick woody trunk and branches growing high above the ground. It is the property of tree. Climbers, they have weak stems, right? Look at the 4 plants below. Which one is a creeper? Right, so what is this? This is a herb, right? So very small. This is a shrub, mid-sized. What is this? Grapevine. Grapevine is a climber because it climbs, right? So it is a climber. Pumpkin, watermelon, they all are creepers because they creep over the soil. Right, so the question is asking which one is a creeper? It is pumpkin. Right? So that is all we had about the structure of stem. Right, so in the next class what we are going to do, we are going to discuss about leaves.